Hello and welcome to WVU Medicine Tuesday Talks. I'm your host, Mary Ravazio Menard. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, a month to remember the lives lost to suicide and the millions who've struggled with suicidal thoughts, and to acknowledge the individuals, families, and communities impacted by suicide. Suicide can be a difficult subject to talk about, but it's important to educate yourself and others about suicide prevention. So today, we're talking about suicide prevention with Jamie Brandish, a licensed psychologist at the WVU Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute. Welcome, Jamie, to Tuesday Talks.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we're happy to have you here. This is a really tough, uncomfortable subject to talk about. It's stigmatized too.
Very much so.
But it's something we need to talk about, as hard as it is. And suicidal thoughts can affect anyone, regardless of age, gender, or background.
Yes, very much so.
So while it can affect anyone, who is most at risk for having serious thoughts about suicide?
Well, there's many different risk factors, and a mental health condition, substance use, family history of suicide, trauma makes people susceptible as well. Any loss, job loss, financial loss, relationship loss can all contribute to depression, which leads to suicidal thoughts. We also find that it's in West Virginia, it is the second leading cause of death for those aged 10 to 24.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. Are the suicide rates higher in that age group, nationally?
It's not that it's higher than in others. It's more common that would be the cause of death for them. And West Virginia itself is 10th in the nation as far as suicide rates.
Oh my. Is that going up? Are suicide rates in general going up?
They haven't released the new statistics for suicide. The most recent data we have is from 2019. But I can tell you in our experience in talking to people, ever since the pandemic and the lockdown, there has been an increase, because anytime you're isolated from your social supports and you can't get out and talk to people, it does increase those thoughts for those individuals.
Is it higher among high school age students?
We see an increase. One of the most shocking increases we see is in the really younger kids.
Really?
Yeah.
Like how young?
As young as 10, 8, that are having suicidal thoughts. And that has been increasing over the last few years.
Why do they think that is?
There's lots of different debates about it. Access to social media, bullying is still a problem in schools, especially bullying on social media has become a bigger problem. Later in October, there's Bullying Prevention Month, so that's something we also participate in. And those kids don't have a way out. And as you said, it's stigmatized, so they don't talk about it. They don't have a way to get the help that they need.
Wow. And it's my understanding more men die of suicide than women. More women have the thoughts, but more men die of suicide. What does that mean? That is,
it is shown in research that men choose more lethal means when they attempt. So they more often complete than women. Women have more attempts, but men more often die from suicide.
Wow. And you did mention that suicide can often be the result of an untreated mental health condition.
Yes, especially people don't have the resources they need. There's not enough mental health providers nationally. or in West Virginia, and people don't seek the treatment sometimes because of the stigma that's attached to mental health disorders. So,
And a lot of times, I mean, these attempted suicide cases, they come through the emergency room.
a lot of times, yes.
And then sometimes they're sent to the right aftercare, but sometimes not, right?
Right. A lot of times they'll try to get them into treatment, and there's sometimes not enough treatment facilities, or they treat them there for a few days and they go home without the applicable community-based services.
Wow. Okay. So what are the warning signs for suicide that we should look for?
The biggest warning sign is talking about suicide. If you hear them mentioning suicide or not wanting to live, signs of hopelessness. Hopelessness is the number one rated determining factor when a person doesn't think they have any other choice to make. Increased substance use can be a sign. Reckless activity, withdrawing from their social supports, isolating themselves, showing rage when they haven't had that in the past, that can be a warning sign. Researching ways to commit suicide or purchasing weapons, those can be red flags for individuals.
So if you know somebody that's experiencing this, or you or yourself are experiencing those symptoms, there are numbers to reach out for help.
Absolutely. And the easiest way, there's numerous suicide hotlines, but the easiest way is with the rollout nationwide of 988. It is the 911 for mental health, and you can call 988, you can text 988, and they also have a chat feature on their website, and you reach a trained counselor who you can talk to them if you want, or if you want help, they have all the resources for each county and can connect you directly with that county's resources. For example, Mobile Crisis can come out and assess and make recommendations. And we also have a suicide prevention specialist. Every region has both a youth suicide prevention specialist and an adult suicide prevention specialist.
And this is 24/7?
Yes.
Okay. And what if you're a parent of somebody that families and loved ones call this number as well to get help? What do I do? I think, my son is...
Absolutely. They can call and ask for resources or ask what they should do. We get calls from parents from schools that are concerned about others, and we can go out and do assessments and make recommendations. And a lot of times just opening up that conversation will help the person to seek help.
Okay, so what should you do if you or a friend or loved one is in a suicidal crisis? They have the symptoms that you just talked about.
And that is to call 988 and get them help. Always take any talk about suicide or any concern about suicide seriously.
Okay, and if it's yourself, call 988.
Yes.
Is there anything else we should be doing besides calling 988, or, I mean, like, what would you say? Because I know I would think like this. I would be afraid, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I make things worse? And I think a lot of people have that fear.
They do, and a lot of people are very uncomfortable talking about it. But in the research and in our profession, it's noted to open up that conversation. Most people are relieved to be asked if they're having suicidal thoughts, just to be able to say it and voice it, and just listen, non-judgmentally. Listen and then help connect them to help. Hey, let's call this number together. It is just often about being that support person. Anyone can help prevent suicide just by reaching out.
So listening and reaching out.
Yes.
Listening non-judgmentally.
Yes, non-judgmentally.
That's the key. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is the best way to connect those in crisis with the resources they need?
You know, as I said, 988 is a great resource. They have all the resources for the state and wherever the person is. Also, your community mental health centers are outlets. They have the counseling, they have the psychiatrist, and they can help point you in the right direction as well if you don't know where to go.
What about resources for those who are left behind after suicide? I mean, how do you come back from that? It's so devastating. What about resources for families and loved ones that are left behind?
Most of the suicide preventionists and a lot of the mental health professionals have had post-vention training and go in and help those who are affected. It affects everyone in the community, even those who didn't know the person. It still affects them. And just being available, having people there for them to talk to. We do suicide trainings in the schools. In 2015, West Virginia passed what's known as Jamie's Law, which requires all middle school, high school, and colleges to provide suicide prevention training to their students. And when you go in and you do the presentation, and then you have numerous counselors there to talk, and the amount of people that come in and open up that they're worried about someone or that they've had these thoughts themselves, it's really something.
Yeah. Is there anything else, Wes? So listen, call. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to start that conversation. Oh, that's so hard.
It is.
That's so hard. Is there anything else we can be doing to prevent suicide and create awareness?
Educating ourselves. There are a lot of suicide prevention trainings that are free to people online, free to anyone. So anytime you're in one of those positions, you can go online, get some training about how to talk to people about it. If you're concerned about someone, there's also available at many mental health centers talking to parents about how to talk to your kids about these difficult topics. And just not being afraid to educate yourself and looking for the warning signs and knowing what they are.
Okay, all right. So what's the most important thing you want our viewers to know about suicide prevention and awareness?
Just that you're not alone and that there's people out there to listen and there is help. No one should have to feel like that is their only choice in any moment. So reach out, call 988, talk to somebody, even if you're just going to talk. It makes a difference.
Okay. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for sharing this information, and I'm glad we had this conversation.
Yes.
I know it's hard, but we need to know.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of this edition of Tuesday Talks. If you're in a suicidal crisis, you can find confidential emotional support by calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988 or texting 988. Call or text 988. And join us on Tuesday Talks on September 26th when we'll talk about single port robotic surgery for prostate and kidney cancer with Dr. Ali Hajaran, WVU Cancer Institute Urologic Oncology Chief. I'm Mary Ravazio Menard, and on behalf of Jamie Brandish and everyone at WVU Medicine, thanks for joining us.